Hey guys, hope you're having a fantastic day today. Today we're going to be talking about 10 things that you can declutter in your living room. And whether you kind of let the clutter pile up in your living room over the years, you're planning on moving in the near future, or any other life change has happened that's kind of sparked this declutter, I hope that this list of 10 things that you can declutter right now inspires you to really create a more simple and intentional living room that's really going to be functional for you and filled with the things that you love. And if we don't know each other yet, hi, my name is Ashlynne and I make videos twice a week on this channel about minimalism and intentional living. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button down below for weekly inspiration. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the first item that you can declutter from your living room, which is remotes and entertainment systems. And I don't know about you, but I feel like oftentimes when there are too many remotes, I just get confused. And honestly, it's a little bit overwhelming trying to simply turn on the TV because you're trying to juggle 4, 5, even 6 remotes at one given time. And oftentimes, even after we've stopped using an entertainment system, whether that's a VHS player, a DVD player, or something else, we'll continue to hold on to those entertainment systems and the remotes that go along with them well after we've actually stopped using those items. An example of this is last year, Christopher and I actually invested in a PlayStation for Christopher, which plays DVDs and Blu-ray discs perfectly well. And so we had this Blu-ray player that we bought, prior to owning another way of playing DVDs, and all of a sudden had absolutely no use for it. And it sat around for a couple of months before I finally realized, oh, we never actually use this anymore. So really consider if there are any entertainment systems and remotes that you can go ahead and declutter that you're just not using frequently enough to justify, or perhaps are completely outdated and you haven't used them in years. Whatever is the case for you, really consider what entertainment systems do you actually use, what remotes do you actually use, and consider if there are any that you might be able to declutter. Next up is unused furniture, and this can really be of any variety. It could be a couch you don't use, a chair you don't use, a table that you don't use. One particular culprit that I often find that goes completely neglected is the side table. And I feel like we're kind of told that when you're kind of putting a living room together that side tables are necessary. But what I find is more often a coffee table gets used rather than side tables, and yet you might have upwards of 4 tables in a living room at a given time. And so figure out what of those pieces of furniture do you actually use, what do you actually get value from, and if there's anything that you're really not getting value from, it's perfectly okay to go ahead and declutter them. Things like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, Angie's List, and others are a great way to dispose of unused furniture and hopefully recuperate some of the money that you might have invested in it originally. Number 3 is baskets, bowls, and containers in general. And I find that living rooms are often filled with different types of containers for different things, whether it's decorative balls or simply just a basket for keys, or something that's completely not being used. Oftentimes we have an excess of containers for things, and if you have any that aren't serving a functional purpose, or perhaps you might be able to move the contents of those into, say, a single basket rather than having several of them, figure out how you might be able to reduce sort of your containers for things. Oftentimes we keep the amount of things that we feel like we need to fill the containers we have, but if you kind of change your mindset and say, oh, what if I don't actually need a container to fill things? What do I do with the contents inside? It allows you to declutter even more of your belongings. So just consider your kind of receptacles, if you will, and evaluate whether or not there's some that maybe you don't use or that you don't need. Number 4 is board games, and I am a huge board games fan. Honestly, that's one thing that Christopher and I have probably more of than you would expect, that we use on a regular basis. And so I have no issues with keeping games that you actually use and that you get value from. That being said, not every game is designed for everyone, and games in particular are often given to people as gifts, whether that's for their wedding, a birthday, or any other occasion. And so consider if you have games that either you bought or were given to you that you simply haven't played in the past month, 6 months, or a year. If you have anything fitting that description that I just shared, consider whether or not it's best to donate or try reselling those games. Likewise, if you have games that are missing pieces, that's also a great candidate for going ahead and being decluttered, simply because if you have a game that you cannot play, what's the point in keeping it around? And if you have too many versions of a single game, I'll throw that out there as well. I've seen people with a lot of decks of cards. Just figure out what you actually use and what you need and declutter the rest. Number 5 is magazines, and this one I have a very hard time understanding why people will collect years and years and years worth of magazines and then just put them in like a little magazine rack waiting to be read in their living room. Honestly, I personally don't read very many magazines, and the ones that I do, I will kind of read them, enjoy them, and then go ahead and recycle them, and I feel like that's how magazines tend to be best enjoyed. Oftentimes the contents of magazines and newspapers become outdated very quickly, and so if you find yourself in a situation where you do have a lot of magazines, definitely go ahead and consider those as a great candidate for being recycled. Figure out if there are any that you haven't read yet that you still want to, and maybe you can keep those, but definitely go ahead and recycle any of the ones that you've read, you've enjoyed, but are no longer relevant. Number 6 is candles and candle holders. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy candles just as much, if not more, than the next person, but I do definitely think that oftentimes we can have an excess of candles, and especially decorative candles that rarely get used. Oftentimes we'll find these in the living room and they simply just kind of add clutter without actually serving a purpose. If you want to have a scented candle in your living room, that's awesome, but actually use it. Where candles become a candidate for decluttering is if it's something that you kind of have to have, but you never actually use them. So perhaps you want to make an actual point of using up those candles and use that as your way of decluttering them, and maybe realize that you're not a candle person and don't repurchase them. Or see if there's a friend or family member that you might be able to give them to. Also, if you brought home a scented candle that you don't like, once again, try giving it to someone who can appreciate, enjoy it, and use it. But if you have either unwanted scents or simply ones that you don't use lying around in your house, whether it's a candle or a candlestick holder, definitely go ahead and consider those as great candidates for being decluttered. And once again, with candles, gifting them or donating candle holders is a great way to get rid of them. Number 7 is getting rid of knickknacks. And knickknacks are something that can really creep into a living room and kind of take over. Oftentimes these pieces are either given to us, we bought somewhere, whether it's on a vacation or simply at Target, but they're those meaningless pieces of decor items that are simply there to serve as decor. And in trying to create a meaningful, intentional space that's a reflection of who you are and your personality, oftentimes knickknacks can really easily get in the way of that. So as you're going through and evaluating the decor items in your living room, just ask yourself, is this something that's representation of who I am and the space that I'm trying to create, and do I love this item? If the item in question falls into that category, then by all means keep it. But if the item is so-so, or you don't love it, you don't hate it, or simply you don't actually like it, definitely go ahead and declutter those items. By keeping only those things that you absolutely love, that really reflect your personality, and by decluttering the knickknacks that are just kind of cluttering up your space, you're going to be able to create a more warm and inviting environment, because it's going to be something that's a reflection of who you are and how you want your room to be used. So if you have any knickknacks that aren't adding value lying around your living room, definitely go ahead and donate those items. Number 8 is throw pillows and blankets. And I love a good throw pillow and a blanket in a living room. But that being said, oftentimes we can have itchy and uncomfortable blankets, completely flat pillows, or simply too many of either category. Go ahead and consider what your needs are as far as throw pillows and blankets goes, figure out how many you need, and use that as a great basis for your decluttering. And then at the same time, also go ahead and evaluate, are there certain blankets or throw pillows that, whether because they're uncomfortable, they're completely dead, they've seen better days, might be best served by decluttering those items. Once again, I'm not suggesting that you should get rid of your throw pillows or blankets entirely, but by reducing the amount that you have to things that you actually use on a regular basis and need, you're going to be able to create an environment that's less cluttered in your living room. Number 9, and we're getting to the end here, is DVDs, VHS, CDs, any kind of media that you might have. And oftentimes media can kind of creep into our lives slowly over the course of years, and then suddenly we turn around the next day and we have an entire collection of CDs, DVDs, whatever it is. If this is a case you find yourself in, definitely consider whether or not some of those items that you have might be able to be digitized, whether that's the CDs you have, and then you could go ahead and donate the CDs, or anything else like that. One option that Christopher and I have pursued, because we do love watching movies but we don't want a large DVD collection, is maybe try out a Netflix DVD subscription. For I believe it's $7 a month, you can get upwards of 4 or 5 DVDs, probably more, that you can watch in a single month. And at that price per month, it's often more cost effective to simply be doing that rather than continually buying more and more DVDs. Explore what your options are here, but if you're not using something regularly, or if it's simply adding clutter as far as media goes, consider decluttering it. If you're looking through your DVD collection and seeing movies that you haven't watched in the past 3 years and don't plan to in the future, go ahead and declutter them. And finally, number 10 is wall decor. And whether it's a mirror, a word sign, any kind of clock or something that you might have hanging up on your wall, if it's unnecessary, if it doesn't spark joy for you, if it isn't in line with the space that you want to create, if it isn't functional, if you don't love it and you don't use it, consider decluttering it. For me, one thing in this category that I kind of really feel a little bit strongly about is word signs. I feel like word signs are so often given to people as gifts, especially at weddings, and they say things like live, laugh, love, or family, fun, friends. They all say things that are a little bit cheesy and sentimental, but for me personally, they don't actually do anything. And so for me, even though I was given at one point several times that said things along these lines, for me it personally made sense to go ahead and declutter every single one of them, because simply for me they didn't add value. I would rather somebody tell me to their face, hey, I really value you, than having a sign tell me that. So perhaps it's word signs for you, perhaps it's mirrors, perhaps it's clocks or something else. But if there's a piece of wall decor that simply isn't adding value to your life and that doesn't spark joy for you, then I'd highly suggest decluttering that item. So there you have it. Those are 10 things that you can declutter from your living room right now. I hope this video inspires you to take action and head over to your living room and figuring out what actually is adding value in your living room and perhaps what isn't. I'd be interested to hear though if there's anything here in this list that I missed. What else can you declutter in the living room that perhaps I didn't mention here? Let me know what those items might be in the comments below. And also, if you guys enjoyed this video, made it to the end, and haven't subscribed already, definitely hit that red subscribe button below if you're interested in receiving more minimalism and intentional living content coming at you twice a week. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I love you guys all so much though. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.